Hi, it's Ashleigh from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome back to my channel where I make a lot of cake and cookie decorating tutorials as well as give a lot of baking business tips. But today we're going to be trying something out that's a little bit different from my usual format. I thought I'm doing a lot of baking projects. You guys don't want to hear the same thing over and over again, so I thought I would read some really great baking Reddit stories while you get to watch me decorate and make various desserts. I'll leave little notes about what I'm doing as I'm cake decorating, but if you're just listening and you're not actually watching your screen, then enjoy the stories. Am I in the wrong for not letting my niece help in my bakery anymore? I, 35 female, own a small bakery. I'm very happy with it and proud of my work. I have 2 employees who work part-time, and for the most part, it's just me. My sister-in-law approached me at the beginning of the summer and asked if I would let my niece, female, 11, wow, that's quite young, help out in the bakery over the school break. She's been getting really into baking and loves watching content creators baking and was apparently just dying to be able to job shadow or help out in a bakery. I was hesitant but said yes, and I hated it. Every single minute that her niece spent in my bakery this summer was the only time I've ever had any regrets about opening my business. Whatever the opposite of helpful was, that was what my niece was. My employees didn't enjoy her being there, and I didn't enjoy her being there at all. We were 3 very grumpy people all summer. I had hopes that she would get better, but she didn't. She started back to school this week, and I have never felt so relieved. I thought many times about telling my sister-in-law that she couldn't come back during the summer, but since I had made the promise, I kept up with it. My sister-in-law stopped by the house yesterday to drop something off for my husband. She told me my niece had absolutely loved her experience this summer and wanted to know if she could come back a couple of Saturdays a month. I told her that unfortunately this wasn't going to work and that going forward I didn't think it was a good idea for my niece to help out. I told her it just wasn't productive for us. My sister-in-law was very unhappy. She told me that my niece had loved her summer at the bakery and was so looking forward to continuing. I told her that I was sorry, but I had a business to run and couldn't continue having her help out. This dissolved into a shouting match that my husband eventually broke up. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law have been sending me nasty messages about breaking a girl's heart. My husband said my niece called him and was very upset, but he stands by me and understands that I can't let this bring down my workplace. So am I in the wrong? And just so you know, some of the words I have changed just to make sure that it stays family friendly on this channel. Personally, with my own family, I am a firm believer that business and family do not mix. Obviously, I know there's a lot of mom and pop bakeries that thrive and people can work together really, really well. However, I think it's a little bit different when there is a boss and then there are employees. Anytime there's that different power, it can be really, really complicated. Not to mention that the worker in this story is incredibly young, and to expect an 11-year-old to be able to work or follow directions even at the same level as an adult is a little bit unrealistic. And let me tell you, nowadays, children are very different, and executive functioning just isn't there like it used to be. And I really do think that 2020 changed a lot of that. And this is coming from an educational perspective. This is not to say that there are some bright, shining stars that would obviously be able to rise to the occasion, but this simply is not the norm, and I would expect somebody's aunt to be able to know their niece well enough to know whether they're going to be able to rise to the occasion or not. That being said, you can know somebody really, really well and still not really know how a situation is going to pan out. So I think that the way that the aunt approached this situation is exactly how it should be approached. No dramatics, hopefully, according to what the story says, and just being really straightforward that it's not working out for somebody's business. I really don't think that they were in the wrong in this situation in terms of how they handled the situation after the fact, and honestly, those family members that are being nasty and coming after her, they're incredibly immature. Children need to learn about disappointment and that not everything works out. This is what's going to be able to make them cope in life. If somebody always gets mad on your behalf that you're not being successful in anything, then you're probably not going to be very successful in life in general. And as for the original thing, I really do think that she was in the wrong for hiring, quote unquote, her niece in the first place, because this had disaster written all over it for the most part. If you want to teach your niece how to bake and how a bakery works, there are other ways to do that other than putting them in a place of your employment. Moving along to the next story. Am I in the wrong for telling my in-laws I will not be changing the name of my bakery? The bakery was originally my parents' bakery, my mom's more specifically. Dad worked there, but my mom ran the whole thing, and she was the driving force behind it. The bakery was named something with Sun in it. When my parents had me 4 years later, they named me Sunny. My mom had a very complicated pregnancy and delivery, and I was going to be their only child, so they named me after the bakery. I always loved the connection, and it was especially meaningful because my mom died when I was 7. Oh, that's horrible. Dad kept it running with help, so I could take it over one day if I wanted to, so Mom's legacy never died. He got sick when I was 16, and it was tough. He fought as long as he could, but he died when I was 18, and I took over the bakery. Oh my gosh, this story is so incredibly sad. I baked from a really young age and dreamed of running it one day. So I took over as the head baker and have kept it open myself for a decade now. In that time, I met and married my wife, Lila. She started working there, and her mom and her sister also joined the small team we have. It was going well until a few months ago. What did I just say about family working with family? It's always difficult. Let's continue. We were at Lila's parents' house, and her whole family was there, and they brought up how the name for the bakery feels wrong when the family has changed so much. Lila told them the bakery is still mine, and given the history and who named it, they shouldn't think they would get a say in any of it. It was dropped for a while, and then they brought it up again. Lila again reminded them that it was none of their business. Lila is expecting our first child now, and she hasn't been working as much or at all these couple of months, and I have noticed some comments here and there from my mother-in-law, especially about darling bakery names or how nice business names are when they tell you it's a family-run thing. I feel like I know where this is going. I would internally roll my eyes but smile and say those were great names for those people's businesses. Clearly, she got annoyed because then her and my sister-in-law cornered me recently. What is up with people cornering their family? And told me that they felt like they had such a big part in it, which they don't, that the name should reflect the family and not just me or what my mom had wanted to call it. I told them I will not be changing the name just because they work there, and if that is a problem, there is no reason for them to force themselves to stay if they don't want to. They both told me that they do want to work there and told me I was twisting what they said, that they just want to feel more included and like this is their family business too. My mother-in-law told me that unless we plan on naming our child some Sun-related name, it's not just going to be a random name in the future. I pointed out many businesses are that, but they told me I was being deliberately obtuse. Am I in the wrong? Oh my goodness. I get really annoyed when I hear stories like this. You probably already know my answer. I already think that this person is definitely not in the wrong for several reasons, actually. The first thing being, of course, there's the sentimental reason of the fact that this name is so special to his mother and to his father and just to his side of the family. So I understand all of that. But I actually think that another reason that's kind of being overlooked in the original post is a name is actually super important. Well-established businesses don't just go changing their names based on people's feelings. And I think that's another part that really bothers me about this story is why are we changing things based upon a small group of people's feelings that don't even own the bakery? And again, if we're going off of people's feelings and making decisions based on that, well, again, isn't it the owner's feelings that matter the most in this situation? And it's already what it is. I'm sure everything is registered in that business name. And chances are, even if they have a child, that child is going to be like, okay, yes, this bakery is named after my father. So none of this makes sense. I think that your in-laws are being ridiculous and they need to just understand that this establishment is yours regardless of how much they help out there. And I'm assuming that they get paid as workers there. And I certainly can't go and work for somebody, no matter how close I am with them, and start demanding that they change their name because it doesn't make as much sense to me anymore. Am I in the wrong for selling my late wife's cake recipe to a bakery? Just from the title, I really can't decide. This is a tough one. My late wife passed 3 years ago. Our two kids were in their late 20s at the time. It's been a hard few years, and it's even harder now that I live alone. She had a lovely dark chocolate cherry cake. It was my favorite thing that she would make, and I always requested it for Father's Day. I am a terrible baker, and I've tried to remake it from her notes. The notes are not very clear, and it never turns out correctly. It is depressing spending so much time and it being wrong. I've asked my two kids to try and make it, but they have refused to. I was told that they will not figure out the recipe and to stop asking. Interesting. I went to a local bakery and asked for them to figure it out. They agreed as long as I gave them permission to sell the cake in the store. It didn't take them long to figure it out, and it almost is exactly the same to my wife's. I bought one for Father's Day, and my kids were happy about the cake until I told them that a bakery did it. They are angry I would sell their mother's recipe to a bakery. This whole week they've been telling me how much of a jerk I am for this, and I'm wondering if I really am a jerk. I just wanted to eat her cake again. Okay, personally, if I passed away and my husband really wanted to eat a particular cake recipe of mine but couldn't get it right, I would actually think it's really sweet that he went to the lengths of going to a bakery and trying to get them to figure it out so he could eat the cake again. That's my own personal thing. But let's look at the actual story itself. I think the children are definitely in the wrong here. I mean, they refuse to even help their dad try to figure it out. And he already tried several times. Now, maybe these kids really aren't that into baking or whatever. That's fair. But then what, did you just expect for your father to just keep struggling and never to have this cake again? And really, if you don't want to make the recipe yourself, then what are you hoarding the recipe for? Here's the final story, and it's not one asking if they're in the wrong, it's just a story about a bakery boss. So this happened when I was a teenager, around 18 to 19, and I worked for this small bakery in my town. It's worth mentioning that I'm a woman. That is interesting why they mentioned that. Let's keep going. The owner was the worst man I've ever met. He had no business being around other people, let alone managing employees. I was a key holder and the sole cashier of the store really early on. I was left alone to run the place and close it every day. He only gave us half-hour breaks for 10-hour shifts. He frequently made fun of his employees so his buddies could laugh at us when they visited. I can go on and on about this man, but the best summary I can give is that I saw two people quit in their first day while working for him. I told him I was leaving 3 weeks in and gave him a week's notice. He, of course, complained about how unprofessional I, the teenager, was being. I also specifically told him that I will not work next Saturday. My last day would be Friday. Now, I didn't want to work Saturday because that was sandwich day, the day the entire building stops making cookies and pies and makes sandwiches so they can be shipped off for other businesses to sell. It was always the most stressful day because there was too much work and too few people to do it. Also, because the owner, instead of lounging at the front of the store, had to work with me. And he had no respect for personal space. How close he insisted on getting bordered on, you know what I mean, and no matter how many times I brought up how uncomfortable I was, he ignored or interrupted me. So, I wasn't going to work on Saturday. One day, I asked him when I should give back my key, whether I should leave it in the store Friday night or some other time. He interrupted me and said I should give it back at the end of my shift on Saturday. He was convinced that my last day was going to be the dreaded sandwich day instead of Friday. I chose not to correct him, so I didn't. I locked up as usual on Friday, slept in the next morning, and wandered, but it's wandered down to the bakery to give my key back. I walked in and it was chaos. Customers were lined up. An employee who usually worked in the back was trying to man the cash register and failing, and the owner had gotten off his butt for once and was rushing around making hundreds of sandwiches, red in the face and swearing under his breath. I waved at him, but he made it a point to look away from me. I put my key on the counter and walked out. He actually had to sell the bakery a few months later. Something about running out of people that were quote-unquote willing to work. I know I wasn't the catalyst to that particular development, but it's nice to know I helped. I mean, this person isn't asking whether they were in the wrong or not, but I think it's pretty obvious where the boss went wrong. Even though there wasn't a whole lot of detail given here, I feel like anytime a boss says running out of people, quote unquote, willing to work, there's something seriously wrong with management. Having worked for a lot of people in several capacities, I can honestly say that the best bakery boss that I ever had was somebody that really made me feel like I was a part of the team, not a part of the family. I really don't like it when people say, we're just one big family here, because I feel like that puts a lot of weird pressures on you. I liked that I was part of the team and I really felt like I was contributing. And because she was so positive and never really got angry at us for messing up, it really encouraged me to go above and beyond for her business, and she actually did end up flourishing despite the fact that she really didn't know how to decorate cakes herself. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading weekly short videos and sometimes long form videos as well. So be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!